Well, welcome back to campus for the Women of Willard reunion and for Homecoming 2009. My name is Karen Neurohr, and I'm a librarian at the Oklahoma State University Library. This is an oral history project which is called O State Stories, and it is a project of the OSU Library. Thank you, Phoebe, for coming today and participating in the interview. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up?
I grew up west of Kingfisher in Kingfisher County, and I attended Omega High School, which is also west of Kingfisher.
And who were your parents?
My parents were John and Anna Phoebe Kunneman. And my father was, both of them really are from early day Oklahoma families, the pioneer families. My father came to Oklahoma in May of 1900 when he was just an infant, and my mother was born in Neurohr in 1905. Both of, it was Oklahoma territory. Oklahoma wasn't a state yet, so I feel, they were really a part of the beginning of Oklahoma.
What did you say your maiden name was?
Kunneman.
Kunneman.
Yes. Often pronounced Kunneman, but we have always said Kunneman.
Did your parents go to school at Oklahoma A&M?
No, both of my parents had only an 8th grade education. And I think that was pretty common in, the early 1900s. My mother, I know, helped on the farm, and of course my father was the oldest son, and he helped on the farm. His younger brothers did get a high school education and beyond high school, but being the oldest son in 1900, he didn't.
Did anyone else in your family go to OSU?
My brother did. David, he attended, he's 6 years younger, and so he attended later and got both a bachelor's and a master's from Oklahoma State.
What year did you start at Oklahoma State?
1955, September.
It wasn't called Oklahoma State then, was it?
Oklahoma A&M College. It changed names during the time that I was there, and of course that was a big controversy. Whether to become Oklahoma A&M University or Oklahoma A&M College, or become Oklahoma State University. And I think there was also some a little friction between OU and OSU, because OU was the university in Oklahoma at that time, and I don't know if everyone at OU thought that we should become a university at that time. But I do have some clippings in my scrapbook. I do remember the pros and cons of becoming a Oklahoma State University. Would anybody know who we were if we changed our name? And we already had a solid reputation as Oklahoma A&M College, and others thought, oh, we need to be known more than just for agriculture. But it was a big controversy at that time.
Which side of the fence were you on?
I can't say that I really remember what side I was on. No.
Okay. So what was it that influenced you to attend OSU?
I think what influenced me was 4-H. I know that I was had a big decision whether I was going to go, like all of the other girls in my class were going to go to secretarial and business school in Oklahoma City. I think there was a 9-month course or something, and that's what all the other girls in my high school class did, and whether I wanted to do that. But I think it was the 4-H connection that pulled me to Oklahoma State, and having come over here for 4-H Roundup for 2-3 years already while I was in high school, and liking the campus and meeting other 4-H'ers from across the state and meeting some of the 4-H leaders. And I think it's 4-H, but it had a big influence on me coming to Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm. What high school did you go to again?
Omega. Very small high school. There were 16 in our graduating class.
Is it still a school?
Yes,
there?
it is. But it has combined with Loyal, another small school, after a tornado was destroyed the Omega school buildings in about 1960 sometime, and then they combined with Loyal, and so it's now Lomega. Yeah.
So you came to 4-H roundups. Was that in the summertime?
It was always in May, about the last weekend in May, something like that every year, and the leaders, you know, you had to win the trip to the 4-H Club Roundup by giving demonstrations or talks or your high school or your 4-H projects. So it was kind of an honor to come to the 4-H Club Roundup.
What did you major in at OSU?
Home economics.
And when did you graduate?
1959.
When you first came to OSU, did you move into Willard Hall? Was that your first place to live?
That was the first place, and I moved into 215 Willard Hall, and I stayed in that same room for 4 years. And it was a corner room. I guess that's why corner rooms were prized rooms, because they were slightly larger, and they had 2 windows.
Oh.
And it overlooked Theta Pond, and so I changed roommates. My first roommate moved out, I think, to get married, then the next roommate. And they're all members of this group that you will be talking to this afternoon. When she had to move out to do student teaching, then I got another roommate. But I stayed during the entire time, except when I was out student teaching and living in the home management house.
Oh, tell me about the home management house.
Well, that was a nice experience. Actually, I lived in the house that was on North Monroe, I think, up here, and I think there were 5 of us living there. Virginia Adams Simrod, that's here with this group, lived there at the same time I did, and you had to fill out detailed schedules for who was going to cook and what the menu was, and keep within the budget. I think we had to have a high budget week and a low budget week and moderate budget week, and we had to do a certain amount of entertaining, and we had to work all of this in around our classes that were up on campus too. And actually, it was a good experience. And I always credit, in later life was administrator, and I say that I learned a lot of my administrative skills through that home management house experience, you know, the detailed work and dividing up responsibilities and that. And
Did you live there for an entire semester?
No, I think only 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yes, because the same semester we did student teaching for 6 weeks, and then we lived in the home management house 6 weeks, and then there was, you know, like a week on campus before you did anything, and a week in between, and then a week or so at the end. So that made up about the semester schedule.
Okay. Was Willard considered to be a popular or prestigious hall to you?
I don't know if we thought of it as prestigious more than it was convenient in that it was closer to the, you know, the union, and it was closer to the library, and than some of the others. Stout Hall was a newer dorm, and so there was some maybe prestige to live in style, just it was slightly newer in the 1950s. But I always felt it had a good reputation, and I don't know.
You mentioned that you had a corner room and with 2 windows. Were you allowed to decorate your room?
Yes, I think, as I remember, because we'd buy matching bedspreads. We didn't paint the room, that I remember, and we would buy, curtains and things like that, and that was probably about the extent of the decorating, except, Christmas and Halloween and all of the other holidays. You decorate the door and for the occasion. And there were always Christmas door contests to who had the best decorated door, and I don't know if we had that at Halloween, but there were lots of parties always at Willard Hall. Christmas parties, Halloween parties, pajama parties, and this and that. And there was always a lot going on. The dorm had a social chair that planned social activities, and of course there were the the proms or dances that were part of Grand Council, I think, at that time, where like Stout and Willard and Murray Hall would all have their spring formals and their fall formals and this and that.
Tell me about the telephone situation.
Well, that's certainly different from today, is that there was one telephone, as I remember, on each wing of the dormitory, and so there wasn't a lot of privacy, for one thing. I think you could go downstairs on the first floor and have a more private telephone call, and there was always a race to answer the telephone, especially before certain special events or this or that, certainly. But yes, there was only one telephone for that whole wing, and that must have been close to 20 rooms or more, something like that.
I've also heard about the buzzer system today. How did that work?
Oh, now I don't remember, but yes, I mean, I haven't thought about that, I guess. That, I guess if you came in after hours, after the curfew, and we women had curfews, I believe 8 o'clock for freshman women, and maybe 10:30 after even upper class women. If you got in, well, then you had to ring the buzzer, and of course the house mother then came to answer the door, and you had to account for that.
Was there a common shower and restroom area on the floor, on the wing?
Yes, no privacy, no private showers, no private restrooms, or in your rooms or anything like that. There was just one large shower, just room which must have had 5 or 6 showers, I guess. I can't remember.
Were they shower stalls?
As I remember, they were. For each wing, and that was the wing, because that probably was close to maybe 30 rooms, because it would go halfway through the middle wing too, and wing. So that many sharing a shower and bathroom, that kind of thing.
Was there diversity in Willard that you recall? Ethnic diversity or international students? Anything like that?
There were a few, not many, certainly not what you would find today. For some of us, I think, in Oklahoma at that time, the students that came from New York were the diverse students, and to our backgrounds, but Sir, not too much really that I can recall at all, and I can only remember right now maybe one black student, Valerie Robinson, that I remember quite vividly because she was in home economics and and I can't remember if she lived in Willard Hall or not, but I do remember, her very well, and coming over to Willard Hall and studying with her and that kind of thing. But there was certainly not the diversity that must be on campus today, and certainly that I'm used to living in the Washington, D.C. area.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything about the house mother?
Not just that she seemed like a much older woman. I remember her as being very nice and very matronly, but I don't have any particular memories.
Do you remember anything about the Dean of Women?
That was Dean Patchen, I believe, at that time. Not specific memories, just that time I think as somebody that was certainly to be respected.
I've heard that there was a cafeteria in the basement of Willard. Can you tell me what that was like?
The cafeteria was just kind of a plain place, really, where you served not fancy foods, but common foods. And the thing I do remember about the cafeteria, though, is that on Sunday it was a dress-up place, and we came from church, and you were all dressed up, and I think we were expected to dress up for Sunday dinner, and I believe that they maybe they put tablecloths on that day, on Sunday, that it was made to be special.
You mentioned also about the hours that freshmen had to be in by 8 o'clock, and then the older students 10:30 or so.
Something like that, women, but that didn't apply to the men.
Well, that's not fair.
No, no. And when it really, I guess I do remember this inequality was after several sports events when the students would demonstrate wanting a walkout, a holiday the next day because we beat, I think, KU, or there were several events, sporting events that OSU won games that were really important and emotional, and the students would rally, and all of the men, were, I think, and everybody was out there, walk out, we want to walk out, and after the game, and of course the women had to come in, and but the men could stay out, or the women risk the consequences. If I think some of them did stay out and didn't come in by the curfew hour.
Do you remember a walkout ever being granted?
Well, I think several times, yes, they did, but they didn't call it. I think they said that it was in recognition of the achievements of the basketball team, not because of the demonstration of the students.
Oh. How did the women dress go for classes during that time?
Usually, we dressed, I don't think we wore jeans to class. We wore skirts and sweaters and cardigan sets and, bobby socks and loafers. But probably dressy compared to today's standards, but it's different. I can't remember that we wore pants that much, really.
Mm-hmm. Were there leather sweaters or leather jackets or that kind of thing?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you remember hearing about the panty raid on campus?
Yeah, that's probably being asked everyone. There were rumors several times of, that different fraternities or that were going to have panty raids. I can't really answer any specific details about that. Sometimes they were rumors, and I can't remember.
Were you active in the Residence Hall Association or anything like that on campus or for Willard?
I added to it. We had a little newsletter. I think it was a one-page thing that I added to part of the time and put that out. I think it was called the Willard Wind or something like that.
Willard Wind?
Yeah.
Was it, what kind of things would go in the newsletter?
Oh, maybe events that were going to occur, or the names of election of new officers. It may have occurred, may have included some social activities that are coming up, maybe something about the coming Christmas party or that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
How did you make copies of it?
Oh, I think on a mimeograph machine. It was purple ink, and it was typed on a typewriter,
Mm-hmm. Were there several typewriters available for students in Willard Hall?
Well, a lot of us had our own
Oh, you had your own
typewriters.
Uh-huh. Were they electric typewriters?
Oh, no. Not that I remember.
Mm-hmm. So the ribbon and
and all the, correcting them and the carbon paper and
yeah. How did you distribute the newsletter?
If I remember correctly, we each had a cubby down on the first floor where they put our mail, and I think it went into those cubbies, maybe.
Okay. Did you work on campus anytime while you were there? Did you have a job?
No, I did not have a job.
Okay.
I had a 4-H club scholarship for several years, and then I think a high school scholarship for some reason. I think that helped with tuition. And,
Were there opportunities to stay active in 4-H somehow after you went to college?
Yes, there was a collegiate 4-H club, but it was more of a social club then, and a service might have had a few service activities, but it didn't have the 4-H club projects that you had during high school.
Mm-hmm. Were you in the social club or in the 4-H social
collegiate 4-H club?
Collegiate 4-H club.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
And that's how some of us have continued to maintain, relationships. Is that many of us in this group were in 4-H club, and so at that time.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Do you remember when the WOW term was first used, or you first heard that term? Women of Willard, WOW, the WOW group?
For this reunion.
For this reunion?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was always Willard Hall group. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Willard.
What do you remember about the library?
Oh, it was a wonderful place. A beautiful building. It was just impressive, and I do remember the study rooms. When you go in the library, and on both sides of the entrance there were rooms with nothing but long tables, and that's where we went to study usually, or sometimes we would go to another floor where there were smaller tables, interspersed with shelves of books and things, but there were the large two large study rooms on the first floor on each side of the entrance that lots of people always went there to study, and then you would take a break, go to the Union for coffee or something, and then come back and study some more. But it's part social, part study, but we often went to the library to study.
Do you remember anything about the security at the library, or about a dress code, anything like that?
I don't recall anything about a dress code. I don't recall anything about a dress code throughout college at all, actually. But the security, they did check your books when you left the library. There was somebody at the desk to check the books.
Okay. Now I'd like to ask you about some of the traditions at Willard Hall that you might remember. You mentioned door decorating. How elaborate would the door decorations get?
Well, depending what the residents of that room wanted to do. Probably the basics were, about covering the door with paper and pasting on or drawing on designs on that. Some had rather large, that were more artistic, certainly did a lot of drawings and that. Others might just have a bow or a wreath or something, but it kind of depended. They decorated for Halloween also, the doors there.
Were there some special Christmas traditions in Willard?
Well, as I remember, I believe the Christmas party down in the living room would be singing, and they would have punch and cookies and that kind of thing. And of course, there was the Christmas dance that was coordinated with Murray Hall and Staff Hall.
Would girls go to the dances if they didn't have a date?
I don't remember them ever doing that.
So you had to have a date to go to the dances? Would there be live music?
Yes, there was live music.
Was there a piano in the living room?
Yes, and that was used for parties and for singing, and sometimes the women would just sit there and play too.
What would happen when a woman became engaged?
Usually a shower party. Got thrown in the shower. That's one thing I remember.
Do you remember anything about scrapbooks at Willard? The traditions or history or anything that would have been around or that you could see?
I can't remember that.
Okay. Do you have any other personal special memories of your time at Willard?
Well, I think the friends that I made there, our course, have lasted for 50 years, and we really made a group of really special people that have been connected to for all of these years.
How many reunions have you been to?
I think I have made all of them except one. We lived in South America for 7 years, and so I did miss, I know, one when we lived in South America. But I helped Virginia Simrod, and I organized the first one, which was the 10-year reunion at Quartz Mountain State Park, and that was in 1969. But I think I have made every one of them except that one.
So after the Quartz Mountain one, when was the next one?
It could have been in the 70s because we were in Peru 73 through 80. And I know I made one in 84.
Okay. Did you have a career after you left OSU? You had your degree in home economics?
Mm-hmm. I taught for 2 years at Ripley, which is not very far from Stillwater, of course. My husband was working on his doctorate at OSU, so I got the job at Ripley, and then we moved to Stillwater in the summer of 1961, and I had a graduate assistantship at OSU, and then I was on the faculty in the child development department for 1 year then, and then he finished up his doctorate and we moved to Mississippi. So then there was a period of devoting my time to children, and then in 1973 we joined the Peace Corps. My husband took a leave he was teaching at Texas Tech University and took a leave of absence for 2 years from Texas Tech, and we went to Peru as Peace Corps volunteers, and we're one of probably the last Peace Corps volunteers with children to serve in the United States Peace Corps, because after that they stopped, I think, taking families as volunteers, but we then served in Peru as Peace Corps volunteers. We came back, we stayed in Peru for 7 years and continued there after the Peace Corps years, and have been living in the Washington, D.C. area for the last 20-some years, and for the 15 years, well, I've worked in child development, and then in the last 15 years I was executive director of the Falls Church McLean Children's Center, which served disadvantaged children primarily, and we provided a lot of comprehensive services for the children, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, and psychological consultation, parent education, and so forth. So after that, I retired.
Do you feel like OSU enabled you to have the job skills and the career advantages that you were able to enjoy?
Oh, yes. I guess, I just never dreamed I would be so fortunate to have a career where I felt that I could use all of those skills, and I also felt that you were contributing to the community, both as a Peace Corps volunteer or at the Children's Center. Yes, Oklahoma State gave me a good foundation.
Do you remember when the name changed? Did we talk about that already?
Yes, we've talked about that.
What about when Willard was converted from a dormitory to administrative use? What did you think about that?
Oh, we were a little disappointed, but all of this group came over for the dedication of the new Willard College of Education, and we, as a group, also collected funds to dedicate that corner on our wing to one of our members who had died, and so we wanted our print to continue in the new education building.
And that was the west end
Yes.
of Willard?
Where we put the little plaque and dedicated that corner.
Are there any classes or professors that really stand out to you in particular for the programs that you were in? You mentioned the one at the house.
Well, a professor that really influenced me, and is why I am in child development, is Dr. Josephine Hoffer. She had a great impact on me and influenced me to go into child development. and which I didn't regret. And I had a number of classes, and she also directed my master's thesis.
What was your topic?
What was my topic? It had something to do with pre-adolescence and whether those pre-adolescents who felt they were living up to their parental expectations fared better or differently from those who didn't feel they were living up to parental expectations. No, that's almost 50 years ago. To get the exact title, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think I
yeah.
understand that is.
So it had to do with parental pre-adolescents' feeling of achieving their parents' expectations.
Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy the research experience of that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Were you involved in any other activities on campus?
I was involved in Phi Zeta Kappa was a religious group, and I was a member of Gamma Delta. It was a Lutheran student group that I can remember. Those were the main ones that I remember.
What was homecoming like?
Well, the thing I do remember is how we dressed up for homecoming in high heels and best suits and dressed up, and it was a colorful and special occasion.
Did you dress up to go to the football game?
Yes,
you did.
We were dressed up.
Did you wear corsages?
You usually wore it, especially if you had a boyfriend. I know you did.
Were there any other student traditions that stand out in your memory?
Of course, going to at homecoming was walking around and seeing all of the houses and all decorated. We would do that. No.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your experience at Willard or your experience at OSU?
Well, I can say it was a great experience, and often I considered those years, those college years, as among the best years of my life. They were fun, and I had lots of good friends, and we had great times, and we studied hard, and we had great times together. Those were good, just really some of the best years of my life, really, and I always look back on them with fond memories.
Good. Well, thank you so much for participating in the interview today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I hope it's helpful.
It is.